Meron, sir? Hello, Sir Alan. Meron ng audio? Good evening po, Sir Alan. Ay, di ba marinig?
Ang sweldo ng mga guro sapagkat how do you attract the best and the brightest if their salaries remain to be not competitive, especially not even in the
Meron na, sir?
in the ASEAN but in the Philippines as well. At bilang entrepreneur guru at doktor ng humanities, gusto ko pong itaguyod ang Micro-Enterprise Commission na kung saan ma-enable natin yung 89% ng mga micro-enterprises out of the 99.5% na MSME at ma-incentivize ang growth kung sila ay lalago at
Okay, Sir Alan, thank you. So, exclusive live po tayo. Hindi ko kasi ito nakita eh. Hindi ko nasubaybayan nung nag-live sila kahapon. Sa signal siguro, sir.
At saka communication, we have a national flag carrier, kailangan maibalik natin sa sambayanan Pilipino. Pangalawa, our country today are disunited. The Muslim are disunited, Christian are disunited, and we have two big political party in our country and all disunited. So si Albani, I'm going to spark the unity and national reconciliation sa bansa pagkat ito laman ang susi sa tunay na pagbabago sa bayanan Pilipino.
Thank you, Mr. Albani. Mr. John Castreciones.
Ang priority legislation ko po ay ang agrikultura. Alam po natin ang kahalagaan ng agrikultura sapagkat ito po ang nagbibigay sa atin ng pagkain sa pagkainan. Alam po natin, we are an agricultural country. 60 to 70% of our population are actually engaged in agriculture. But the irony of it all is up to now, tayo po ay bumibili ng bigas sa ibang bansa. What an irony. Several decades ago, the people from our neighboring countries would come to the Philippines in order to learn the ropes of planting palay. Pero ngayon, tayo na po ang bumibili ng bigas sa kanila. Ganon din po, ang bangus na dati-rati po ay napakasarap at nabibili lamang sa Pangasinan. Ngayon po ay binibili na natin sa Taiwan. Ang galunggong, na kung saan ito ay pagkain ng masang Pilipino, binibili na rin natin po ito sa China. Ibig sabihin, napabayaan po ang agrikultura. Kaya kailangan po natin ng mga batas na magtataguyod at papaunlarin ang agrikultura. Agriculture is the backbone of our country. We are an agricultural country. Ano ang gagawin natin kung napakaraming mahihirap na mamamayang Pilipino? Kailangan po natin silang tulungan. Ito pong nag-uugnay nakaugnay sa insurhensya, sa kanayunan. Kaya kailangan dapat nating paulirin ng agrikultura. Alam po natin, ayuda, tulong, lupa, yan po ang kailangan ng ating mga magsasaka. Kung wala po ang magsasaka, ang sabi natin, sigurado magkakaroon tayo ng problema. Lalong-lalo po ngayong panahon ng pandemya na kung saan tayo pong lahat ay umaasa sa pagkain. Wala pong gamot ng pandemya. Ang kailangan po natin, pagkain, lupa para sa ating magsasaka. Yan po ang kailangan natin.
Thank you, Mr. Castaciones. Attorney Leo Olarte.
Pag ako po ay papalarin na maging senador, ang mga priority legislations ko po ay sa kalusugan. Bilang doktor ng medisina at abogado, ako po ay magagawa ng batas na magpapahalaga sa kalusugan by establishing a Research and Development Science Center. Ito pong Science Center na ito ay magmamanufacture, research, develop vaccines for infectious diseases katulad po ng pandemic Omicron Delta, which is our #1 arch enemy. And also medicines to prevent cancer. Ang cancer po ang pinakamatinding kalaban ng mamamayang Pilipino. Marami pong namamatay sa sakit na cancer, high blood, diabetes. Kailangan po natin magawa itong mga gamot na ito upang magagamit po natin. At ang sobra ng mga gamot at mga bakuna na ito ay ibibenta natin sa ibang bansa. Number 2 po is the education. Bilang profesor po ng batas at ng medisina po, at aking napansin po na itong mga kabataan po natin, mga estudyante pagdating po sa universidad, mag-aaral po ng medisina at batas, meron po silang kahinaan. It will become mandatory for all parents to bring their children mula kindergarten hanggang grade 6 sa eskwelahan. Libre po ang ibibigay na almusal as an incentive. Number 3 po is senior
Attorney
citizens.
Olarte, you're out of time, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Thank you. Attorney Salvador Panelo.
Ako po ay tumatakbo sa Senado upang ituloy ang mga reforma na sinimulan ni Presidente Rodrigo Duterte, isang serbisyong malasakit at matapang. Ang pangarap ko ay pangarap ninyo. Gusto ko po na palagi niyong iisipin at abutin ang mga pangarap ninyo sa inyong mga sarili at sa inyong mga anak. Ayon po sa ating sariling batas, ang pangunahing tungkulin ng gobyerno ay magsilbi at magbigay ng proteksyon. Isusulong ko po sa ngayon dito sa batas na ito ang palawigin pa at palawakin pa ang libreng edukasyon, ang health at legal services. Bigyan ng 10,000 allowance sa mga ng tahanan. Doblehin ang mga sweldo ng mga guro. Ang mga drivers ay bigyan ng ayuda ng gobyerno. Bigyan po sila ng subsidy. Yung pong mga LGBTQ na inapi, kailangan palakasin natin ang anti-discrimination laws. Ang mga may sakit, may kapansanan, PWD, kailangan bigyan din po natin ng protection. Kasama na rin ang mga senior citizens natin ng ayuda. At ang pinakamahalaga po sa akin sa ngayon, yung mga special children, kailangan po bigyan natin ng special education, libre at therapy. At kailangan po bigyan natin ng mga facilities. Ako po ay nakilala bilang tagapagtanggol ni Presidente Duterte at itutuloy.
Attorney Panelo, sorry, you're out of time.
Salamat po.
Attorney Larry Gadon.
Ang isa sa pinakamalaking problema natin ngayon ng bansa ay ang pagkawalan ng trabaho. While the employment rate of 92%, 92.2% in 2021 looks good. At ang unemployment rate natin is 7.8%. Karamihan dito ay puro panandali at trabaho lamang sapagkat ito ay naglaan ang gobyerno ng 40 billion pesos para doon sa programa na tupad at doon sa GIP, yung Government Internship Program at saka yung tulong panganap buhay. Pero panandalian ito. Ang kinakailangan natin dito ay mga permanenteng trabaho at kinakailangan natin ng micro-industrialization na magtatayo, mag-ihikaya tayo ng mga negosyante at mga investors na magtayo ng mga mga maliliit na mga factories, mga pabrika sa mga bayan-bayan upang matugunan ang pagkawalan ng trabaho. At sa rice shortage naman, sa food security, hindi totoo na meron tayong rice shortage. Kung masusunod kung imo-modernize natin ang ating post-harvest system, magmula sa pagpapatayo ng palay at sa paggiling, meron pa tayong surplus na 3%. At yan ay dapat nating bigyan ang Rice Millers Association ng malaking tulong. Bigyan sila ng loan na kanila na magbabayaran. Hindi sila makautang sa bangko dahil sari-sari store operation sila. Pero kapag modernize natin, magkakaroon tayo ng rice sufficiency.
Thank you, Attorney Gadon. Ms. Lauren Legarda.
Salamat po. Bilang chairman ng Senate Committee on Finance sa unang 3 taon ng Duterte administration, nakatulong po tayo sa pagpondo sa maraming mga magagandang programa ni Pangulong Duterte. Nakikita ko po na kailangan natin para sa pandemic recovery is economic empowerment of every Filipino family. Kaya po yung pangkabuhayan law, gaya po ng DOLE Pangkabuhayan, DTI Shared Services Facilities, DOLE Tupad, ang ating DOST SES, iba't ibang mga DSWD Sustainable Livelihood Program must be institutionalized para po even after the Duterte administration, magkatrabaho at magkaroon ng kabuhayan ang mga nangangailangan for pandemic recovery. Pangalawa po, yung One Tablet, One Student Act. 26 million po ang ating DepEd learners na wala pong sariling gadget. Ito po'y kailangan din ng mga estudyante sa SUC, 1.6 million. 80 billion pesos lang po ang kailangan sa 5 trillion pesos budget. Bilang chairman ng Senate Committee on Finance, alam ko po, kailangan gawin ito at kaya pong gawin. Ako po'y nagagalak na makatulong sa pag-enact ng free college education, universal healthcare law during the Duterte administration. Nakikita ko po, kailangan pa pong paigtingin, especially ang universal healthcare para sa pag-roll out ng ating mga healthcare programs. Salamat po.
Thank you, Ms. Legarda. Mr. Rodante Marcoleta.
Pandagdag po sa maraming nagawang programa ng administrasyon ni Pangulong Duterte, kailangan po nating maibaba ang singil ng kuryente sa ating bansa sapagkat ito po ang layunin ng batas na ito'y ginawa 21 taon nang nakararaan. Ito po ay magbibigay ng sigla sa ating manufacturing sector na kung saan darami po ang trabaho at pag marami po ang trabaho ay maiibsan po ang kahirapan ng marami nating kababayan. Pagsisikapan din po natin na ayusin ang problema ng bumagsak na kalidad ng public education. Kailangan po nating ma-restructure yung K-12 curriculum. Ilagay po natin lahat dyan ang mga best practices ng mga bansang katulad ng Finland, ng Japan at ng Singapore sapagkat tayo ay namumuhunan sa mga kabataan ng ating bansa. Kagaya po ng sinabi kanina, kailangan nating palakasin ang productivity ng agriculture sector. Mayaman ang ating bansa, mayaman ang lupa, mahirap po ang magsasaka. Malawak ang karagatan, ngunit kailangan pa nating mag-importa ng isda. Kailangan din po nating tutukan ang lumalalang problema ng korupsyon. Ang Commission on Audit po ay kailangan gamitin natin para bantayan, ma-prevent ang korupsyon, hindi para mag-ulat lamang ng mga anomalya at pangangulimbat na ginagawa. Yan po ay gagawin natin sa maraming pagkakataon kapag tayo po ay naluklog sa Senado. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Mr. Marcoleta. And finally, Attorney Harry Roque.
2 bago po, 2 luma. Unang-una po, ipagtataguyod pa rin natin ang kalusugan bilang nagsulong po ng universal healthcare sa bababang kapulungan. Alam ko po, ang pinakamalaking banta sa tagumpay ng universal healthcare ay korupsyon dyan sa PhilHealth. Kaya pinag-aaralan ko na po ang pagbubuwag ng PhilHealth, pagpapalit po ng National Health Service para ito po isang paraan na matanggal ang mga korap dyan sa PhilHealth at makidabang ang taong bayan sa universal healthcare. Nandyan din po yung pagbubuo ng isang bagong IATF na ang composition ay hindi lang po mga doktor, kung hindi mga negosyante, mga economists, mga sociologists, para pagdekaroon po ng bagong pandemya, maiiwasan po ang pagkagutom and at the same time, maiiwasan ang pagkalat ng sakit. Kinakailangan din mong isulong natin yung aking naihain na na Zero Hunger Bill, itigil na po ang kagutuman sa Pilipinas sa loob ng 6 na taon, at ang Right to Water Bill, magbibigay na po tayo ng sapat, malinis na inumin pantubig para sa lahat ng Pilipino. At nandyan din po siyempre yung dati ko nang pinaglalaban, yung Freedom of Information Bill at saka yung Whistleblowers Act, dahil yung mga kaso po gaya ng extralegal killings at ang mga korupsyon, napakahirap po yan ipruwebahan sa korte nang wala po tayong binibigyan na incentive sa mga whistleblowers o yung mga kasangkot na hindi naman nagkakasala na magbigay ng testimonya. Siyempre po, nandyan din yung ating proteksyon na dapat ibigay sa mga mamamahayag, kung ano yung benepisyo binibigay natin sa mga testigo kapag may banta sa buhay, ibigay din po natin sa mga mamamahayag. Magandang gabi po.
Thank you, Attorney Roque, and thank you to all our senatorial candidates. Napakinggan na po natin ang kanilang mga paunang salita at susunod malalaman natin ang kanilang mga polisiya para tugunan ang problema ng ating bansa. Lahat ng yan sa pagbabalik ng SMNI Senatorial Debates 2022.
Mute ko lang muna mga idol yung sound habang nag-advertise. Welcome po sa mga bagong dating. Pa-comment naman para ma-shoutout ko kayong mga idol. So, exclusive live lang po yung ginawa natin ngayong gabi. So, para sa hindi pa nakapanood ng senatorial debate. Yan, Ma'am Lorna Gutierrez. Welcome po, ma'am. Shoutout po ng bonggang bongga. Sir Paz Cruz. Shoutout po.
Rating ng isa sa mga pinakamaimpluwensyang leader na si Russian President Vladimir Putin ay 60%. December 2018, 81%. March 2019, 80%.
kay Ma'am Juliet Castro.
Normal na bumaba ang rating ng isa nakaupong Pangulo sa huling taon niya sa pwesto. Ngunit, pambihira normal na bumaba ang rating ng isa nakaupong Pangulo sa huling taon niya sa pwesto. Ngunit, pambihira
ICUP Professor Dr. Clarita Carlos. Dr. Carlos, your question, please.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I was listening to all of you as you presented your priority bills. If and when you
ICUP
become senator,
Professor
in fact, I was
Dr.
taking down
Clarita
notes.
Carlos.
So, those are excellent proposals, and I can imagine that if all of you were to be elected senator, we would indeed be heading towards a better Philippines. Thank you. My area of research is foreign policy, defense and security, so it will not be a surprise that my question will be within that particular issue area. The United States has just announced plans to deploy nuclear warheads in Japan. Ostensibly, this is part of the Indo-Pacific security umbrella, which is going to be established following the Quad, which is also working towards a collective security alliance. As a Senator of the Republic, what will be your position in regard to this matter?
The first candidate to answer this question is Ms. Attorney Balita.
Attorney Belen?
Attorney Agnes. Yes, it's really Mr. Balita.
All right, thank you for that question. You know, I trust that our participation and our collaboration with the democracies of the world will help us, and our mutual defense treaties and agreements with the multilateral relationship with other countries should be tapped towards that. As far as the collective security alliance is concerned, the Quad that you have mentioned, Madam, I would presume that the world is watching, and I am confident that we are not in the mood for war post-pandemic, and the most that we can do is to strengthen our positioning, our defense capability, and to cushion the impact on our basic requirements like fuel, food, and other related stuff. I would always be mindful that the democracies of the world in our alliances will be there to collaborate for a peaceful resolution of whatever conflict there are.
But would you have problems with having nuclear warheads in Japan, as U.S. has planned?
Well, certainly it's not for us to say, ma'am, but it's their decision. But I think the Quad itself, Japan being included in it, and the USA being included in it as well, would have better reasons for doing so. And our concern will always be our foreign policy, which should be inward-looking, and our foreign policy that will protect our interests of the Filipinos and the Philippines, not only in the Philippines, but also in Japan and in America, where, you know, conflicts may just arise resulting from it. I will trust that the world is not in the mood for war, and that we are a democracy of the world that would influence each other in seeking peaceful resolution of whatever conflicts there could be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Balita. And apologies for the mix-up earlier. I have two lists, and we're going from left to right out since Attorney Bailen gave the first opening statement. So we will move on. Same question to Mr. Castriciones.
Okay, so of course, as always, whenever we talk about nuclear warheads, it creates a lot of fear amongst our people. And whether we like it or not, of course, we can never persuade the Americans not to pursue such kind of plans, or military plans for that matter. But just the same, as part of the community of nations, we can actually choose where we have to side. And definitely, whether we would become neutral for as long as there would be threats from amongst these countries, the Philippines will always be a part of it. In fact, we all know that we can never isolate ourselves from the interaction of these countries, particularly the relationship between China and the United States of America. And for that matter, we have to take sides no matter what happens. We have to put a position that would have to place our country in a way that we will be able to protect ourselves.
Yes, but similarly with Dr. Balita, would you have any problems with having nuclear warheads in Japan?
Of course, yes ma'am, definitely. If there would be nuclear warheads in Japan, then basically this would create some sort of a countermeasure coming from the countries that would be opposed against such actions. And we all know, if we would recall the Cuban crisis, wherein the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics have actually placed the so-called missiles in Cuba, and definitely there was a reaction coming from the United States. And what will stop China from doing the same? And probably if this will escalate, it will create a war. And that is definitely a no-no for us.
Thank you.
Attorney Panelo.
Ma'am, as a senator, I will raise my voice of concern and apprehension. I'm against the deployment of nuclear warheads. We know for a fact that if you use that, it will be the end of the world. I do not think that any country would agree to the use of nuclear warheads. We have to use international diplomacy on whatever problems we have. We cannot be threatening people or countries with deployment of warheads. That is precisely why we have international diplomacy. We have to use negotiation table to solve whatever differences we have between countries.
Thank you.
We'll follow up. Okay. Thank you, Attorney Panelo. Ms. Legarda.
Having been the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee in the Senate, Professor Carlos, and our dear audience, I would always take into consideration the dimensions of foreign policy, namely economic, political, the welfare of overseas Filipinos, not just in Japan, but in all areas who will be affected by the deployment of these warheads, as well as perhaps cultural diplomacy. And every stretch of that must be exhausted. As a student and administrator of national security, I would also take into consideration the 5 dimensions of national security, which would include socio-economic, political, even religious, and ecological dimension. All of these have to be discussed, not just by one senator, but a 24-man and woman Senate and the whole Congress, so that the Chief Executive could be advised accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Attorney Roque.
As a professor of international law, I submit that nuclear weapons are illegal. One, because they are incapable of distinction under the law of international humanitarian law. And number two, they cause sorrow, superfluous injury, and unnecessary suffering. I am therefore against putting nuclear warheads in Japan. Secondly, it could run contrary not only to our constitution, which prescribes that the Philippines shall be a nuclear-free zone, it also runs contrary against an ASEAN treaty declaring the whole of ASEAN as nuclear-free. Number three, in terms of foreign policy, I believe that there should be strict adherence with the UN Charter. There should be strict adherence with Article 2.4 of that Charter, which prohibits the use of force, and the mere possession of nuclear weapons could constitute the threat of use of force, which is equally prohibited under the UN Charter, in the same way that actual use of nuclear force is prohibited. I enjoin all countries to comply with Article 2.3 of the UN Charter, which encourages everyone to resolve disputes peacefully.
But Harry, if this comes as part of the package of the Quad, what will your stand be?
As of now, we're not part of Quad, and I'm glad we're not. Because if we become part of Quad, we would inevitably be involved in an arms race and might be involved in a conflict that will not have anything to do with our national interests. Our national interest is to achieve prosperity, to be friends with our neighbors in particular. We have no fight with any country, and we have no wish to be dragged into any armed conflict.
But since your Mutual Defense Treaty has not been abrogated and is still in force, we continue to be a defense ally of the U.S. So,
we are, but for all intents and purposes, that's a dead treaty. Because when China took away 2 of our islands, the United States did not come to our assistance. That's a dead treaty.
thank you.
Mr. Marcoleta.
The warheads, Madam, are a source of fear and concern for all humanity. That is why, as an elected senator, I will air my concern and probably advise the administration that we should be advised and by the state policy that our country has to pursue an independent foreign policy, and it also talks about our relationship with other states. That the primordial consideration are national sovereignty, territorial integrity, our national interest, and the right to self-determination. And guided by that, Madam, I'd like to advise the administration that we have a UN Charter to uphold, that these warheads are really prohibited under the law, under the Charter, and therefore we should abide by the Charter, and we should take the diplomatic course in every issue that confronts the world and in our country. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, no follow-up question from Professor Carlos. Thank you, Attorney Marcoleta. Attorney Gadon.
I do not agree, or I do not agree to the idea that the U.S. should deploy warheads in Japan, because it will only escalate the tension between China and the U.S. And since we will be caught in the middle of the whatever tension or hostilities that may arise in the future. So I am not in favor of it. And if we should learn our lesson from the Ukraine, the U.S. has been posturing for the defense of Ukraine, and they did not. Russia invaded it. And when you talk about the 1952 treaty, the defense treaty, as Secretary Roque pointed out, hindi na yun applicable.
So that means if you are a senator, you will abrogate the Mutual Defense Treaty.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. And even I will even urge the government not to enter into this Quad arrangement.
But will neutrality fly?
Well, yes, I would rather adopt the neutrality stand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Gadon. Attorney Olarte.
Well, I think there are already nuclear warheads in Japan. This is the defense policy of the United States. But for the Philippines, our Constitution does not allow us to have nuclear arms or nuclear warheads in our possession. So my view is that the nuclear warheads have provided a security ambit to Japan, and I think the United States believes that the best security is to have a good defense. In the part of the present war between Russia and Ukraine, Ukraine was very neutral, was a peaceful country. The invasion was unprovoked. And yet Russia has put into activation its nuclear forces. I believe that we should settle disputes peacefully.
Attorney Olarte, sorry.
Thank you.
We're out of time. Mr. Albani.
In the name of God, the most compassionate and the most merciful, I think we have been in war since memorial. From the First World War and Second World War, nakikita natin that nobody win in wars. So, para sa akin, we have to define our baseline. We have to be in the position to negotiate in favor of our sovereignty. Consistent must be based in history, culture, tradition, and it is not based with the Western colonialism. So I disagree, and at the same time, we will not support on that nuclear war. We have to be in a neutral position because kawawa ang sambayan ng Pilipino. Tulad ng sinabi ko, we have been in war since memorial. Nobody win in war.
Attorney Espiritu.
Yes, not only do I disagree, we must in fact protest. The United States is playing a dangerous game in our region. First, it is already worse that the US pursues a policy of containment against China. And when you do that, history has proven us when a superpower is contained, just like in World War II, how Germany felt constricted by the Western powers, it resulted in World War II. And now we are witnessing the same policy of containment in Russia, and now we have war. Now, it's not only that the United States contains China, the United States is trying to escalate by putting nuclear warheads in Japan. Definitely, that's a very, very dangerous game. It will lead to war. We must, in fact, protest against this act.
So does that mean you are also going to abrogate the Mutual Defense Treaty?
Yes, I do, but I would like to add that I disagree with the statement a while ago that we have to pick sides. That means, if you don't pick the United States, then we'll pick China. I totally disagree with that. We don't pick the US, we don't pick China. We must have an independent foreign policy. And in fact, we must talk to our neighbors and have a non-aligned formation in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, but is sitting on the fence a viable foreign policy?
That's actually
to sit on the fence?
That's actually not sitting on the fence. That is charting our own
Well, you
independent
said
foreign
you
policy.
don't want to take sides, so you're sitting on the fence.
No, that's not sitting on the fence, ma'am. That is, in fact, making a choice that our future as a nation, our interest as a nation should not be tied to the interest of these two superpowers, and we have no choice. We'll just have to choose sides. That's not sitting on a fence. That is choosing our side, the side of the Filipino people, our national interest.
Thank you.
Karen, please.
Okay. Attorney Suplico.
Follow up on the
Yes.
questions of Professor Carlos addressed to Attorney Roque and Attorney Gadon. Okay, their positions were, which they stated, that the Mutual Defense Treaty is a dead letter law. If elected in the Senate, what would you do? Would you do some saber rattling in the Senate? Would you file a resolution to drive the last name into the coffin of the Mutual Defense Treaty?
Unfortunately, Attorney Suplico, the latest decision of the Supreme Court in this regard says that the power to terminate a treaty is an executive function. It is not a decision to be made by the Senate. That is the recent decision, Pangilinan versus Executive Secretary. Having said that, we can still pass legislation if we want, declaring the country again as nuclear-free zone and providing for punishment in case it is violated.
Attorney Gadon?
If we can effectively remove the U.S. bases here, the military bases, so why can't we remove the 1952 Defense Treaty? It has been proven that the U.S. will not come to our aid when hostilities would break out. Well, look what's happening in our proxy war with China. The U.S. is just using us as a pawn. So we might as well abrogate the treaty.
Yeah, but you have not driven away the Americans. They are in 5 military bases under the EDCA. So, they're here. And because we agreed to the EDCA, isn't it?
But those are just executive agreements, Madam.
No, I'm questioning, because you said earlier that, we don't allow foreign forces here. They are here, and they are here because we agreed to them being here in 5 military bases in the EDCA, under the EDCA.
Yes, but those are temporary stays only, Madam. If you will recall my answer, we have removed the U.S. military installations and bases here. Not necessarily the joining of exercises by the U.S. soldiers. That is a different matter. And in fact, we can also abrogate the EDCA because that is just an executive agreement.
So now that there are no follow-up questions, we'll move on back to the original question of Professor Carlos. And last but not the least, we have Attorney Bailen.
I view with grave concern the deployment of nuclear warheads in Japan. First and foremost, there's a saying in international relations that there is no permanent friends nor permanent enemies in international law. And during World War II, we know how the United States tried to impose sanctions, economic sanctions, when it knew that Japan was trying to assert its military powers. And that's why it tried to contain. There was an embargo, and when Japan was pushed to the wall, it has no other way to go but to declare war. They were trying really to reach the president at that time, but they were really pushed to the wall. That's why I'm very, very concerned, because we are supposed to be the allies. And then all of a sudden, they will put the nuclear warheads there. But of course, can they put it in the Philippines? No, because our constitution prohibits it. So essentially, there's going to be a twist of the balance of power here if it's going to be deployed here.
Any follow-up, Professor Carlos?
Yeah, well, it's a follow-up, but it's not a follow-up, because I want to ask Agnes if, since you don't want Japan to be the anchor of the Quad, are you relying on the ASEAN political security community being realized sometime, like, they have targeted 2025, actually?
The ASEAN 10 now is really, from consensual organization. It's really developing in a positive way, because it's supposed to be, it's just a consensus, but right now it's really playing a very, very major role right now in this particular region. So, and besides, ASEAN it didn't really
Apologies, Attorney Bailen, you're out of time.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, just one more follow-up there, Agnes, no? But we committed already to the ASEAN political security community. For 2025 is the target date. We committed to that. So it's not anything that, you set aside, because it's part of the troika of the community, the 3 communities: economic, political security, and social culture. What I'm saying is, because you're rejecting Japan as the anchor country of the Quad, because it's really the anchor country of the Quad, then that means you must have a fallback.
Yeah, if I remember, ma'am, ASEAN also entered relations. Also, we invited China when ASEAN was starting to flex its muscle. The United States, Australia, they were invited. So I think there is a need to review really why is a need to deploy nuclear warheads in Japan at this particular time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Banyan. Thank you, Professor Carlos, and congratulations to our candidates for surviving Professor Carlos in the first round. We'll be hearing from other panelists in the next segment of our debate, so don't go away. SMNI Senatorial Debate 2022 will be back.
Wait pa. Ngayon ko na eh. Mute ko lang muna yung ads para iwas copyright tayo mga idol. So welcome po dito sa ating reaction exclusive live regarding po sa senatorial debate. Hello Ma'am Miravel Diva.
Nagbabalik ang SMNI Senatorial Debate 2022. At sa pagpapatuloy natin, ang magtatanong naman ay si Attorney Rolex Suplico. But bago ko siya patanungin ng kanyang question to our candidates, I have a question for Professor Carlos. Ma'am, I noticed that you're wearing your sunglasses even if there's no sun anymore. Baka po pwede niyong i-share sa amin bakit po kayo naka-shades today?
Oh my Lord. How did I explain this stupidity? You know, I just had cataracts removed, and those damn lights, you know, they're so bright. They were not there 2 weeks ago. Si Rolex kasi may kasalanan eh. Dapat pinalitan ko. So, may I beg your indulgence, please? I didn't mean to be impolite, no? Wearing this, and I know, hindi nga ako nasa beach, no? Karen, apologies, ha? Apologies, please. Magiging 75 din kayo, kaya nalimutan ko magpalit. Salamat, Karen.
No, thank you, Professor Carlos, and I'm very happy to hear that you didn't enter the witness protection program. I was worried for you for a while. Okay. So our next question is from Attorney Rolex Suplico. Attorney Rolex.
Maraming salamat. Alam niyo po, marami nanonood dito yung nakaraang SMNI debates sa mga presidentials. I think parang tumamang 3 milyon na nanood. So tanong ko po ganito, 11 po kayong tumatakbo sa pagka-Senado. Pwede po malaman kung anong job description ng isang senador?
Job description.
For Attorney Suplico's question, first to answer is Mr. Castriciones.
Salamat, Panyara. Okay, unang-una po, sa katanungan po ni Atty. Suplico ay gumawa ng batas, humubog ng batas. Yan po ang unang-unang gagawin dapat ng isang senador. At dahil nandito ay kailangan po niya ng makipagkonsultasyon sa lahat po ng mga mamamayang Pilipino, lalo na sa mga batas na kanyang dapat gagawin. Pangalawa, ang isang senador ay dapat pong, did I get you right, sir?
Yes.
Ang senador po ay kailangan po siyang mag-conduct po ng mga investigasyon tungkol po sa mga bagay na dapat pong ang tawag nila dito in aid of legislation. Ano po? At sana po ay maiwasan natin yung in aid of election. Yan po yung pangalawa. Pangatlo, kailangan po natin ang senador po ay kailangan pong gumawa po ng tinatawag natin ng mga desisyon tungkol sa mga treaties na dapat pong pasukan po ng ating pong pamahalan sa iba't ibang bansa. Yan po ay isa sa mga tungkulin ng isang senador.
Well, ang inquiries in aid of legislation ay subject to abuse, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Definitely, as we have seen in many of the events that have transpired when they invite the so-called resource persons, that instead of asking questions that are relevant to the inquiry that is being made, they are being subjected to humiliation and embarrassment. I think this should be avoided at all. Otherwise, this will be prone to abuse.
Alam niyo po, after taking the bar, nagtrabaho ako sa Senado. At napanahon ni Senate President Hubito R. Salonga. At dito sa recent investigation ng Farmally, ay napag-alaman ko na wala palang resolution. So therefore, walang parameters. And thus, subject to abuse.
Tama po yun. Yan nga po sinasabi ko na puminsan ay nagagamit po ito bilang in aid of election and grandstanding. Sana po ay maiwasan ito. We should have the parameters within which we have to ask questions directly to the resource persons who are actually related to the issues that are being asked. Tama po.
Thank you, Attorney Castriciones. Attorney Panelo.
Alam po ninyo, yung batayan ng lahat na nahalal sa pamahalaan, kung kahit man ito'y appointed, ay yung sinabi ko kanina na ang pangunahing tungkulin ng pamahalaan ay maglingkod at magbigay ng proteksyon sa sambayanan. Kaya dapat ang senador, ang gagawin niya po yung mga panukalang batas na tutugon sa lahat ng pangangailangan ng sambayanang Pilipino. Lalong-lalo na po yung mahihirap sapagkat ito'y salat lahat. Sa lahat sa yaman, sa lahat ng kagamitan, lahat ng pag-aari. Yun po ang unang dapat na gawin ng isang senador. Pangalawa, yung pong sinasabing investigasyon, alam po ninyo, kontrang-kontra ako doon. Kung ikaw ay may ebidensya at kung ikaw ay isang abogado, nakikita mo na wala namang kahihinatnan ng isang resolution para mag-imbestiga, dapat kontrahin yan. Huwag nang ituloy yan sapagkat sasayang ka lang ng pera ng bayan at magkakaroon ka lamang ng mga sigalot, internal na conflict sa loob ng Kongreso.
Thank you, Attorney Panelo. Ms. Legarda.
Maliwanag po na ang trabaho ng isang senador ay gumawa ng batas. At sa lahat ng batas na ginagawa sa higit na 30 komite, ay ang pinakamahalaga ay ang GAA. Yan po ang General Appropriations Act na siya nagbibigay ng ngipin, the heart and the soul of all government programs. Napalad po tayo na 5 taon po ay nagawa po natin naturuan at natulungan ang Duterte administration. Importante po ang pagbibigay po ng buhay sa mga batas because we have billions of unfunded laws. Kailangan po paggagawa ng batas ay lalagay din po ang nakalaan na pondo para po makabenepisyo naman ng mga tao. Ang mga batas na ginagawa po ay dapat pondohan, dapat din may oversight function para po alam din natin, may benepisyo ba ang mga tao? Hindi lang nakasulat na maganda sa debate, tapos hindi naman po nakikinabang ang taong bayan. Unfunded laws, kailangan siyasatin po natin. Sayang naman po ang mga debate kung hindi naman po nakikinabang ang taong bayan.
Karen, follow-up question to Senator Legarda. Ma'am, paano natin mapipigil ang pangungurakot sa pork barrel? Alam ko na kayo po dating chairperson ng Senate Finance Committee. At ang pork barrel po ay isang mahalagang issue na pinag-uusapan palagi. Kasi po, minsan dumarating yung punto may bit-bit na kontraktor eh. In fact, sabi ni Grepor Belica, 10 to 15% daw advance payment doon.
Napakahalaga po niyan. Unang-una po, ang senador o ang congressman ay hindi po humahawak ng pondo. Ang mga ahensya po ng gobyerno, dahil 3 nga ang branch ng government sa legislatura, hindi po sa kanila. Nasa executive department po yan. Kaya binanggit ko po, ang trabaho po ng senador at congressman, yung oversight function po ay napakahalaga. Ibig sabihin po, striktuhan po ng siyang implementing agency, DAR, DA, DepEd, para po ang procurement arm po ng mga ahensya ng gobyerno ay hindi po bibigay sa mga layon, kung masama man ang layon, ng legislatura na makialam sa implementasyon.
So, klaro ma'am, no? Ang trabaho ng mambabatas,
Gumawa ng batas,
hindi bumit-bit ng projects.
Gumawa ng batas po at oversight para po maging epektibo ang pag-implement, pero hindi po mamimili kung sino po ang mag-i-implement. Yan po ay sa executive department at sa procurement arm ng DBM.
Maraming salamat po.
Attorney Roque.
Well, nasabi na po lahat ni Senator Legarda dahil siya 3-termer senador na. No? Siguro po ang idadagdag ko na lang is when we talk of legislation, we talk of policy. Ano ba yung mga pulisiyang sinasabi natin? Ito yung mga bagay-bagay na nakakabuti, hindi lang sa ating mga Pilipino, kundi nakakabuti sa lahat ng mga mamamayan sa buong mundo. No? That is why we say law is part of a normative system. It encourages conduct that is beneficial to us, discourages conduct that is not beneficial to us. Pero in addition to legislation, which is the primary obligation and job of a senator, there is also oversight. Because in our system of government, binigay po ang kapangyarihan sa 3 sangay ng gobyerno na co-equal. At they are supposed to serve as check and balance. At meron din pong papel na pinapapilan ang ating Senado pagdating sa foreign policy, yung concurrence ng treaty. Pero gaya po sinabi ni Senator Legarda, no public funds shall be spent without consent of the people, kaya importante po yung pagpasa ng pantaunang budget.
A follow-up question to Attorney Roque. Ang trabaho ng mambabatas ay gumawa ng batas. Matagal na tayong walang divorce law. Are you willing to sponsor a divorce law?
Well, unang-una po, meron po tayong tinatawag na annulment sa family code. Siguro po, to balance between yung paniniwala ng mayorya ng mga Katoliko sa Pilipinas at yung mga naniniwala na couple should have a second chance kung sila'y nagkamali, siguro po gawin nating mas madali yung declaration of nullities nang sa ganon, it serves the purpose of promoting family life, a healthy and happy family life, and a way out for those who really made mistakes.
No follow-up question, so we'll move on to Attorney Marcoleta.
Dalawa po ang gawain ng isang senador. Una po ay yung legislative function at saka yung constituent function. Sa legislative function po ay nagagamit yung tinatawag na formal inquiry in aid of legislation at kasama na rin po yung oversight function. Pero hindi po dapat na ito'y abusuhin sapagkat kagaya ng nangyari itong kamakailan lamang ay imbes na po gamitin sa paghihimay sa implementasyon kung talagang matutukan yung pamamalakad ng batas na ginawa ay nagamit po sa ibang paraan. Meron po kasing desisyon ng Korte Suprema na kapag gumagawa ka ng investigative function ay hindi dapat prosecution sapagkat hindi ibinigay sa Senado yung tungkulin na prosecute sapagkat yan ay para sa National Prosecution Service lamang at sa Korte. So meron din pong constituent function, kinakailangan mong konsultahin ang constituents mo para sa ganun makapagbalangkas po kayo ng batas na naayon po sa pangangailangan ng ating bansa. Yan po yung dalawang kailangang mapanagutan ng isang senador.
Well, I have the same follow-up question to Congressman Marcoleta. Are you willing to sponsor a divorce law in this country?
Hindi po, sapagkat ako'y naniniwala in the sacredness of marriage dito sa ating bansa. Considering na ang pamilya ay siya pong pinakabasihan o batayan ng ating lipunan, ang gusto ko po ay mapalakas yan. Ang gusto ko pong gawin ay makagawa ng mga batas na lalong magpalakas sa ating mga pamilya at kung mayroon mang problema, gumawa rin tayo ng paraan na matulungan sila para mapangalagaan po ang pagsasama ng mag-asawa. Alang-alang na rin po sa katatagan ng ating lipunan.
Attorney Gadon.
Ang job description, Ang job description ng senador para sa akin ay yung paggawa ng mga batas at yung pag-review ng mga batas na dapat ng palitan. At ang pagsulong ng mga bills na makakatulong sa administrasyon. Although ideally, the separation of powers between the legislature and the executive is promoted by the Constitution, hindi naman ang nangangahulugan niya na dapat sila mag-away. Kung kinakailangan ng executive ng mga batas na makakapagsulong ng kanilang programa, yun ay aking susuportahan. At ang isa pang hindi ako agree na trabaho ng mga senador ay yung mag-imbestiga. Dapat yan sa DOJ na yan o kaya sa COA o sa Ombudsman. Dapat ganon.
Well, follow-up question to Attorney Gadon. No? Ang Family Code of the Philippines, no? EO 209, ay nagsasabi na ang marriage ay maaring permanenteng union sa lalaki at sa babae. Mag-sponsor ba kayo ng amendment ito para payagan ang same-sex marriage dito sa ating bansa?
Hindi. Ginagalang ko ang mga karapatan ng mga LGBT. Marami akong kaibigan sa kanila, ang iba sa kanila very talented, pero hindi ako naniniwala na magkakaroon ng kasal between two same-sex person. At ako naniniwala pa rin dun sa sanctity and yung sa pagiging basic institution ng marriage. Kasi diyan ka magtatayo ng iyong pamilya. Kaya yung same-sex, hindi ako pabor doon.
Attorney Olarte.
Ang function po ng Senado is to legislate laws that will promote the public welfare and the public good. And also is oversight function. Ang ayaw ko po na ginagawa ng Senado at saka yung Kongreso is when they invite resource persons and they ask questions from the resource persons, and if the resource person answers are not in favor with their opinion, then they insult the resource person. That is a very big no-no to me, because the resource person are private people and they are more knowledgeable in the sphere of knowledge that they bring to the Congress.
Alam mo, Panyero, follow-up question, Karen. Doon sa Blue Ribbon Committee, bawal magsalita ng abogado doon eh. Hindi ko makita paano madepensahan yung kliyente mo na pinatawag doon. Would you have any comments?
Well, I do not agree with that, na hindi makapagsalita ang abogado. If there are important matters that the lawyer can contribute for the public good and to make the bill better, to improve legislation, then why not? The committee head should allow it.
Thank you.
Mr. Albani.
In the name of God, the most compassionate and the most merciful. Ang trabaho po bilang isang aplikant sa Senado ay gumawa ng batas. Kaya po kung mamarapatin ang gagawin natin batas, yung tinatawag na cooperativism. We will create a system para ang lahat ng sambayanan Pilipino, ang karamihan, hindi na siya mag-abroad at dito na magtrabaho sa atin. Sapagkat ang kalaban natin ngayon, kung makikita natin, kung maisabatas natin ang cooperative system sa bansa natin in the form of decentralization, makikita natin dito sa bansa, ang kalaban natin, hindi si pula, hindi si puti, kundi ang kahirapan ng inang bayan. We are under the economic bankruptcy. So ito po ang batas gagawin natin, tuldukan natin ang kahirapan sa bansa.
So, follow up. So, anong tingin niyo po ang job description ng isang senador?
Job description ng senador ay gumawa ng batas, polisiya, upang magkaroon ng equal footing of justice. Kaya bilang isang kapatid niyo Muslim, tumatakbo kami upang marinig naman ang hangarin namin. Because ngayon, we have 24 senators in our country, 21 in Luzon, 3 in Visayas, 9 in Mindanao. So, para marinig ang bayan natin, ng sambayanan Pilipino, we have to give chance for the Muslim brother.
Attorney Espiritu.
Ang sistema ng demokrasya natin ay representative democracy. Therefore, kung representative democracy yan, dapat ang katangian ng isang senador o qualification ng isang senador ay sinisilbihan niya o nire-represent niya yung interest ng majority, hindi ng minority. Sino ba ang majority? Ang majority, ang mga manggagawa, ang masang Pilipino, ang mga maralita. Sino ang minority? Ang mga bilyonaryo, asyendero, businessman, negosyante. At ang interest dapat nung mas nakararami ang sinisilbi niya. Ang kasamaang palad, 95% of our laws is about protection of private property. Is the protection of the interest of the property holders. Kaya ang hirap ngayon, ang hirap maging public interest lawyer. Didepensahan mo ang manggagawa, talo ka parati. Kasi ang batas natin sa proteksyon ng kapitalista. Didepensahan mo yung mga pinapalayas ng mga urban poor, mahirap mong depensahan. Bakit? Para dun sa land grabber ang desisyon. Kaya our lawmakers have failed us.
So follow-up question, Attorney Espiritu. Pag kayo po'y mapalarin at mahalal bilang senador, ano kaya ang kaunang-unahang Senate bill ang ipa-file nyo?
Nasabi ko na kanina, yung regulation, totoong security of tenure law, bawagin ang mga manpower agencies, at dadagdagan ko pa. Kailangan ang sweldo ng mga manggagawa ay 750, daily minimum wage, at buwagin ang mga regional wage boards, dapat isa lang ang minimum wage sa ating bansa. Then that will promote or that will serve the interest of the majority.
Thank you.
Attorney Bailen.
Ang trabaho ng isang senador ay gumawa ng batas. So ang gagawin po natin, gagawa po tayo ng batas na talagang tututok po talaga sa kailangan ng mamamayan natin ngayon. Alam naman po natin, baksak ang ekonomiya natin ngayon, unti-unti po bumabangon, pero kailangan pa po natin i-accelerate. Ang sabi nga ng kasama ko po na tumatambos na si Attorney Luke nga, na representante, kung titignan nga natin ngayon, kami ni Congresswoman Lauren Legarda, dalawa lang kaming babae. Mas maraming botanteng babae. Kaya dapat mas maraming senador na babae ngayon. Kasi ang pagbabae ang nakaupo ay magiging more compassionate, more inclusive development, at may mga studies po dito. Pangalawa po, ano pang trabaho? Ayun nga po, legislative inquiry in aid of legislation. So pagkatapos, dapat po, nung investigation, meron pong kasamang batas na nagawa. Meron ka bang i-amend? Meron ka bang i-repeal? So ayun po, at budget, kailangan po, nakatutok po yung budget sa kailangan.
Thank you, Attorney Bailen. And finally, Mr. Balita.
Sabi na po nilang lahat, copy-paste na lang. Pero meron po, sanay po ako mag-interview, sanay po ako magbigay ng job description. Meron po silang hindi nasabing lahat. Ang senador ay kailangan maging mabuting halimbawa sa sambayan ng Pilipino, sa pagmamahal sa Pilipinas. Ang job description niya, hindi siya dapat corrupt. Hindi siya dapat gumastos ng kalahating bilyon or 500 million pesos at the very least na ang kanya lang namang sweldo hindi po maabot ng 200,000. Ang makapagbigay siya ng inspirasyon sa Pilipino para mahalin ang Pilipinas, ang gumabay sa mga Pilipino para iangat ang kanyang kinalalagyan, at gawing hindi franchise ang Senado ng pamilya at hindi maging lifetime career ang Senado. Ang akin pong job description ay binibigay ang tinatawag nating soft skill or ang hindi na isusulat na job description. So balit dapat maramdaman ng Pilipino na pinaglilingkuran ng mga senador na ito. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Mr. Balita. And thank you, Attorney Rolex Suplico, for your question. We will be hearing from the other two panelists, SMNI Senatorial Debate 2022.